Hello, this is Chris Parker with the Business Simplicity Podcast, and I just had a conversation with Candace Nkoth Bisseck, who is a fellow coach at an Enablers Network, and she's a trainer and advisor to organizations on inclusive leadership. And we dove deep into that, and we also discussed her book, Miracles Beyond Borders. So, Candace, we covered a lot, but why would it be really valuable for people to listen to this conversation?
So I think they would be interested first for the unique perspective of the value and importance of including leadership, i.e., allowing talents of different background, perspective, journeys to thrive and contribute at the best of their capabilities in an organization. It's a fascinating conversation, but also a more personal, um, few personal stories, including this transformation journey that I had to go through as a young woman, hopeful uh, hopeful, hopeful romantic who fell into an abusive relationship and had to, you know, find an inner warrior to get out of there and thrive, becoming the person that I am today professionally. But also how at some point is also useful to put down the warrior to live and lead with more love and less fear. Ultimately, a very, I think, inspiring and thought-provoking conversation.
The Business Simplicity Podcast, where we learn about strategies and tactics to succeed through simplicity, with your host, Chris Parker.
And welcome back to the Business Simplicity Podcast. This is Chris Parker, and I'm having a conversation with Candace Nkoth Bisseck, who is a fellow associate and member with the Enablers Network. And I've known her for, I don't know how long, maybe quite a few years, but she is a coach, consultant, leadership development advisor on inclusive leadership in her own agency, Innoa Consulting. And it is indeed at Innoa, Innoa consulting.com. You can find all about Candace there. We're going to get into Innoa, also her book. She wrote a book, Miracles Beyond Borders, Tales of Faith and Resilience from an African Woman on Her Journey to a Better Life. And that was an amazing and emotional journey that you've been on. That I'm sure we're going to play around with that and discover that, I hope. So Candace, thank you so much for joining. You've been on my list as possible guest for a long, long time, and we've been fortunate enough to make the connection. Maybe can you just kick us off with, instead of just say, who is Candace, can you share a little bit about who is Candace in the context of the book? Because it's really about your youth, maybe not your youth, but earlier in your life, living in Africa, making the transition to Europe, and in many cases back again. So can you just open up that door for us and share with us who is Candace?
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for having me and for the question. I as you said, the context of Miracle Beyond Borders is a little bit of my origin story, the origin story of the professional woman that the world perceived me to be. Within that context, I'm a young woman in her early 20s at a crossroad. I'm coming out of a season of grief because I lost my brother and my father in a short amount of time. And I find a savior to help me escape that grief and think about the future. I find a hero, I would say. So I'm a young woman who is in need of a hero and a direction for her life, and she thinks that this love is going to take her there. Uh, it does in a way, but it's just that ultimately the hero I was looking for in that relationship was myself because I had to save myself from that relationship. And the direction I was looking within that love, quote unquote, love story ultimately was a direction that would lead me out of that love story, figuring out the fact that, okay, I need to get my life together, go back to school, move to Europe, and in between, do a lot of personal development, strategic planning, building, holding on to my faith and growing my faith because yeah, I'm living in an abusive, ultimately the hero, my so-called hero in love was an abuser, verbally, physically, emotionally, all of the above. And I had to decide after hesitating for the longest time between staying and leaving. I had to decide that not only will I leave, I know that I will not leave with this blessing or alive. So I need to strategize. And that season of my life really transformed me from a naive, hopeful, disoriented young lady to the woman that I become, basically. I don't know who I would have become without that Abidjan chapter in my life. The story took place in Abidjan, the capital city of Côte d'Ivoire. Um, and as traumatic and difficult as that episode was, I am forever grateful for it because it was literally my incubator slash accelerator in a way. And I'm here, so I made it. I made it alive. Um, and it made me a better person in many, many ways. And I'm happy that after it happened more than, no, I left more than 15 years ago, but I'm happy, I'm very grateful that after 15 years, I got the courage to put that story out and kind of shake a little bit this image of corporate, entrepreneurial, inspiring warrior that some people may have and say, you know what, this is what is at the core of who I am behind this, this image that is not false, but that is vastly incomplete. There is a little girl who was a dreamer. There is a young woman who was disoriented and that had to turn into a whole hero at some point. So, yes, this is who I was at that time.
Yeah, I think um being your own hero, I believe would resonate with a lot of people because I think there's so many people from every walk in the world that are trapped, feeling disempowered, waiting to be saved, and you had to do that yourself. I'm curious, how does that manifest itself in your current reality in today? Meaning you've the fact that you weren't sure if you would leave that relationship alive. Just underline that the level of risk and fear um, that I've never felt myself. I cannot even associate with that feeling, but the word triggered me. How does that manifest itself in your own personal power, personal love, personal agency now?
Like how does that feeling of lack of safety
No, that
is
like
impact the way?
being your own savior. I think that itself
Yeah.
is such an amazing experience. And is that live on with you? Is that like really part of your psyche now of being power?
That's an excellent question. There was a warrior that was born or, manifested through that experience. And the past few years, I would say the past 6 years, part of my work has been to partly retire the warrior because the tools and the tools that you put in place to survive a war, a life or death situation, are not always the same tool you use to just thrive in a peaceful environment. It makes you ready for war, for fight, for flight.
Mm,
For love, it's a little bit more complicated. And by love, I mean the broader sense of the term, even loving yourself. So my challenge as someone who has come from victim to warrior is to now finding the right middle, knowing that I have that warrior in me. I can fight, I can strategize, I can escape, I can plot, I can do a lot of things, but I don't want to live in fear and fight and flight all the time. I want to be able to trust in the fact that I don't have to do it alone too, because the consequence of that is also hyper independence. Trust issues, hyper independence.
Mm.
uh, in toxic proportions. And I'm still fighting that tendency to hyper independence, in the sense that I'm better at asking for help. I'm better at being vulnerable. Like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not doing fine. I'm not going to, and to disappoint people because of the weaknesses or my vulnerability. But at the same time, sometimes when I face complex challenges, my initial assumption is I'm supposed to have a solution to this. It's my responsibility. So until I figure this out, I'm not going to tell it to anyone because I
Mm.
need to do it. So this is the way it can manifest sometimes. And this has been the journey of, actually a therapist told me that, like, Candace, you're in Switzerland. It's a rather safe and peaceful country. It's wonderful that you had that when you needed it, but how about we put the shield and the swords down. And I'm like, yeah, but now there's a new battle. I'm an entrepreneur. There's uncertainty. I don't know the bills. She said, yes, but, but maybe, the same medicine you will need to fight cancer is not the same you need to fight the flu. So it might be, so yeah, this is how it manifests today.
There's some deep wisdom in what that counselor shared with you. I think it's
Mhm.
and I imagine all of us go from one season of life to another and bringing the tactics of the past into the present. It can be very inappropriate. I think we can all learn from that. What did you mean by love is very complex? So like you said, this doesn't really apply for love. So I want to grab onto that and what, well, first question is, like you said, love is this broad thing. So when you say the word love, what do
Yes.
you mean by that? And then
What?
how does this relate to the concept of love?
Um, in general, in your work, in your entrepreneurial venture, in your relationship, you can lead with love, wink, wink,
Hey.
or
Yeah.
you can lead with fear. But
Mm.
if you have spent your time on a mental and emotional battlefield when you had to become a warrior, guess what you're going to do by default, even when in a different context. So that's what I meant. It's like learning to live with love and faith than with fear, fight, and flight.
Can you expand on faith for you, if you're willing to share? Like, what does faith mean to you?
Oh, so okay, I'm a believer, and I find balance through my faith. It's by knowing that I am not alone, even if I don't have an answer to a situation I'm in. I trust that the same entity, person, God, whatever you call it, that has kept my lungs breathing and that keeps my heart pumping without me knowing anything about heart technology, the same God that has allowed me to escape from Abidjan alive will handle this. If my dream doesn't have an answer, it means that it's above my brain pay grade, and something else
Mm. Yeah.
is gonna deal with that. And what I've seen in the past repeatedly is that you surrender. You're like, well, that's faith. Faith is also surrender and accepting that you cannot do everything, you don't know everything. And what would happen sometimes is that out of the blue, somebody randomly reach out to you and it triggers a sequence of coincidences or action that get your problem solved without you having to lift a finger sometimes. So that's what faith is to me, is really the belief in the fact that, okay, I'm here, but I'm not in control. I'm merely a vessel, a tool for something bigger than what I can imagine. And because I'm part of something bigger, that thing is going to make things work in the way they are supposed to, which means being open to the fact that the outcome you expected will not happen. So yeah, I think in a nutshell
Ooh,
that's
let me grab onto that. The outcome you expected will not happen. I love that. Meaning,
Mhm.
as you know, I played with in the Lead from Love book of outcomes being unexpected and mysterious and always perfect, I believe. The and perfect doesn't always mean as you expected. So what do you mean by to be open for the unexpected? That because for me, I think that for me in life is one of the biggest challenges of because of course I have intention and I have goals and rarely do my plans work out. They always work out some other way. And I just wonder, like, why do I keep expecting stuff to go as I expect them? Because it never does. It always comes out in some way, and I learn and I grow and I adapt and I take the next step. But what did you mean by I guess be open for the unexpected?
Okay, I really love the eating examples because they are fun and simple. Many of us, when we're a teenager or in your early 20s or younger, may have had a crush or relationship with a person that didn't go the way we wanted. And we tried to make it work and we prayed for it to work and we hope it worked and we're sad because it didn't work. And we were like, oh my God. And fast forward a few months, a few years, or several years later, you realize that God didn't work. I wouldn't have met this person. I would have traveled to this country. I wouldn't have left my hometown. I wouldn't. And you realize the person who has become as a consequence of that heartbreak. And you're like, yeah, I'll go back and have that heartbreak 1,000 times if it means having this wonderful life journey. So it's really
Mm,
trusting the fact that, okay, I can pray for having this specific job opportunity or this personal life opportunity, but also trust that what seems like a no sometimes might be a not yet or might be a no, I have better for you.
yeah. Wow. I think this is um I really feel this essence of faith and surrender in this view on life as well. And it really resonates with me. Um, I'm curious to turn the page just a little bit into your professional work about inclusive leadership. And before we do that, I want to share one of my appreciations for you in the Enablers Network. We've had some I felt really deep, authentic human conversations about appropriate and inappropriate behavior amongst some of our enablers associates. And I don't think I could have had um, that level of conversation without you holding a safe space and being able to being so elegantly and professionally calling out inappropriate behavior and then also following up with facilitated reflection on that. And I'm talking about on a certain mountaintop in Switzerland. I think maybe what we're talking about there. Um, when you're talking about inclusive leadership, can you explain that on because there's more than just including, but it's also welcoming and embracing, I guess, so like creating a leadership space where all are embraced is what I feel. But when you talk about inclusive leadership, how do you specifically define that? What is it that you're really hitting on in your inclusive leadership work?
It's the ability of creating a work environment or whatever environment that is where everybody, regardless of their background, their story, their personality, etc., is able to thrive and contribute, like fully allowed to be the best self for the whatever ecosystem they are. And it's not easy. It's not the easiest approach to leadership because again, it's easier to manage people that are clones of your own, I mean, close to your personality, your background, etc., because there are little friction, you know each other by heart, etc., etc. It's a much more challenging exercise to include person you don't know about. Maybe you're a type A, super well organized type of manager, and all of a sudden you have working with a guy that is great, but that has ADHD and it has very poor time management. it triggers you and you don't want that. But can this guy, while not being as type A manic organizer as you are, being a rich contributor to whatever work you are doing, if you become a little bit more curious and create a space that allow him to thrive, basically. And it works for uh, parents of young kids, people of different religion, people who will not go out on an after work on Friday evening because they rather sleep early, be with their family, not drink alcohol. Does it mean that it doesn't have to be part? How do I create an ecosystem that allows people from different backgrounds to feel a sense of belonging? And because they feel that sense of belonging and safety, they can thrive, they can contribute, they can collaborate, innovate together. And as we know, having an inclusive work environment is great for talent attractivity, talent retention, engagement within the team as well, and innovation, because all of a sudden you are not in a echo chamber of like-minded clones, but you are this environment made of people of different background and perspective, and that can allow you to have a broader and richer approach to whatever you are doing, basically. So that's the inclusive leader for me, is the one that is able to, create that, let's say, space for others. But it's not easy because it requires a lot of courage, the courage to, you know, deal with dynamics and people and profile you may not be familiar with. It requires the courage to confront your own bias, because we all have biases.
Mhm.
And you need to kind of fight that. It's like being a parent and having a favorite child, but still you cannot make it too obvious if you don't want them to go to therapy forever. But yes, that's an inclusive leader for me. It's, someone that creates the space for people of different backgrounds to thrive.
Yeah, it's not easy. Currently, I'm working with and absolutely loving working with some teams that are predominantly or completely Islamic. And there's a story when a deal was sold that had a heavy influence of alcohol. It was an alcohol distributor company. I am highly ignorant about most things in life, but the Muslim beliefs were definitely among them. I've read the Quran, the English translation, but that doesn't mean that I understand all the nuances of Islam. And a subordinate refused to work on this project, and we had signed it. So, the I don't know. I haven't been trained by you, but my initial reaction was curiosity, and so the outcome of this was, okay, what? tell why? Help me understand this. And I actually got more angry with leadership than that individual contributor, because I said, well, clearly we as the executives have failed you, because we put you in a situation where you had to say no to power. You had to say no to the customer. And we had not made it clear for all of us what we were as a company allowed to do and allowed not to do. And so what we ended up doing is making a policy around some of these things. So of course, you can't codify everything in the, whatever is halal and haram, but in this case, we were able to have that conversation and say, okay, well, actually, this is what we're going to do to not put our people in that position again, to have to, for their own beliefs, for their own culture, their own needs, have to say no in such a way. I know there's something just emerged to me that just being totally surprised by it. And then, even though I'd done the research on what is it like to work with Egyptians and Islamic people and stuff, until you experience it and get really hit in the face with the totally unexpected, like what? Yeah, so I can imagine it's not easy. How do you help people, and how do you help teams hopefully get out in front of it and not be hit in the face with these surprises? Because I could have, as an arrogant, white American male in that situation, I had to come in very judgmental and dictatorial. I could have reacted in a way which would have been much more destructive. So how would you help people, leaders, teams get ahead of this curve and be more open for the unexpected. And in that unexpected, I think is like you said, the gift of innovation comes from this. So what is your work in that space?
My work in that space is first awareness of the fact that we all have blinders. Even the more culturally competent among some of us, we don't know anything, so we are prone to making mistakes and being ignorant. But it's important to be aware of our biases, knowing that we have biases, and having that kind of self-awareness where when your bias comes up in the decision you make, you be able to, oh, maybe this, maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I'm a little bit biased here. Let me revert back to, I think it's Daniel Chapman. I forgot his name, but he's a Nobel Prize, I believe, in psychology. Not sure, but he defined the system one, system two, the subconscious and the conscious mind. And so go back to the conscious mind, the slow mind. Like, maybe I'm biased and go back there. It's also so raising awareness, but also allowing leaders to create spaces where those mistakes can happen and conversation can happen. Like create space where conversation can happen, basically. First, being curious about the people you work with and their views. You need to get out of your comfort zone and just not just go on lunch break with or interact with people that you already know by heart in a way, but with humility and curiosity, as you said, being open to know what else is out there. What's your perspective? Try to listen without judging and be able to welcome things. The more you do that, the more you create a space where even when something come out of the left, the left field, you'll be like, okay, we have a space where we can address this in a safe way, where my colleague or my team member can tell me that because of my values or my religion, I'm not going to be able to work on this project or those kind of things. Basically, helping leaders to create space where there is psychological safety for people to say, I'm not coming at the afterward because my preferences, my personality doesn't allow it. I struggle with this part of work because of this hidden neurodiverse, divergent thing that I have, etc. Creating safe space for people that are not like others in one way or another, and challenge yourself not to go towards judgments, but seeking to understand, seeking are the needs, the values, or the fears that are beyond somebody's preference or background, etc., etc. It's a heavy load. But as they say in Spider-Man, great power comes with great responsibility. So, yes.
Peter Parker.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
if I'm connecting some dots, putting down like if you're in warrior mode, driven by fear, I find personally that is the hardest place to withhold judgment. You're quick to judge. You're quick to lash out. And so, if you're able to put the sword down, leading from love or leading from empathy, for me, that the more I do my meditation and start the day in a calm space, the more I allow myself. I get ahead of myself to withhold that judgment just a moment. And often for me, it can be just that moment, that initial flash at the beginning, that there's a decision to warrior or not warrior. I don't know what you describe. And but I can really imagine vocalizing this as a management team and having this conversation and being intentional about inclusivity can be very liberating. Yeah, and I imagine people would find incredible nuances in their colleagues, because oftentimes we kind of conform to the culture we think is at the company, and then we kind of self-limit ourselves. And if everyone's walking around, like these clones you talked about, self-limiting themselves, how much magic is just getting left on the floor, just not brought forth. Incredible work.
is really the magic of moving from asking people to be cultural fit to allowing people to be cultural ads.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
really, mm,
Now, one of the fun things I like to do at this season of the podcast is be inspired by Rumi, our favorite uh, 13th century, I think 12th, 13th century Persian poet. And you came out with two quotes, but I think um, where would you like to go with that? Would you like to talk about both or one of them? I've already mentioned two, so I think we have to. I think I'm just curious, like, in your exploration of Rumi,
mm.
what did you discover and why did it resonate with you in relation to yourself and your story and your work?
Yeah, the one that really resonated with most with me, and especially given the perspective you followed in the book, was the one about everyone has been made for some particular work, and the desire for that work has been put in every part. And in that section, basically, uh, you discuss this UN-centered approach to management, focusing on aligning individuals with work that match their intrinsic motivation and capabilities. And it resonated with me because, again, that's allowing people to be not cultural, but allowing them to be operational ads. I don't know, but to bring on whatever magic they had in them
Mm,
instead of forcing them to fit in whatever pre-existing structure you had in mind. And I know it's not always realistic, but I know
yeah.
that, I mean, it has resonated with me because for the longest time, I forced myself to be that kind of fits into whatever definition of what a professional should be when you have done business school and this type of work. And there were opportunities within the job that I was doing. I was working as a consultant in Paris between 2000, in this specific company, 2013, 2014. And I was doing consulting work, different projects, some were exciting, some others not. And at some point, because I realized that I was very bad at Excel, bad, not great for the level of the company. They were engineers, tech nerds, so you can imagine the level, and mine was not there. But I was great at doing presentation and also just verbal presentation. They compared to my nerdy engineering colleagues, they were more computer guys. And so my boss asked me, they were doing a cycles of training within the company, and he asked me if I would like to be the trainer for the art of presentation and PowerPoint to a whole company of consultant, manager, engineers, etc. I was like, me? Why not? And it was an astounding success.
Mm,
And it changed the way I engaged with my work, which was not to train people, but I felt so in my zone, value celebrated to what I can bring. And I was like, okay, I'm not just a failure because I'm not an Excel wizard. I'm an amazing trainer and I'm great at presenting and, constructing ideas in a way that are compelling. And not everybody can do that, right? So that was the aha moments in my career that made me think that I should, as much as I can, in any type of work that I choose, try to bridge the gap between, the work that has been put in my heart. And it also influenced the way I led in company. After that job in Paris, I led a tech startup, was the country manager of a tech startup in Cameroon, having to work with talents, local talents in a new industry at the time. Um, so they had roles, they had to fit in roles, but I really wanted to find out what was their zone of genius. Because if you have a work that allows you to tap into your zone of genius, what you're great at and you love to engage with, it changes your relationship to the work that you have to do. And I remember it wasn't always possible from an operational standpoint, but we always had like pet project, like, oh, this weekend we are going to do some sort of event for women empowerment or something with the youth. Oh, you are a fitness instructor part-time, even though you are a salesperson at a job. Would you like to curate a fitness thing that we can engage with the guests. Oh, you are a part-time DJ. Oh, you love baking. Would you try to be our caterer this time? And they absolutely love it. And they brought that joy back to the
Mm.
workplace. And at some point, some of them managed to go even further in the love that they had for whatever they were doing on the side. So yeah, I love that when, you know, we you talk about the balance of the heart and mind, the way like bring more of the heart into the mind space at work.
Yeah, everyone has been made for some particular work, and the desire for that work has been put in every heart. And he continues, by the way, let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love. So just continuously silently drawn to your inner intent. I had the benefit early in my career. Tom Carey was a manager also in a software consulting role. And yeah, his advice was something similar, which is, just align the work that people are doing with what they're just passionate about, and then as a manager, get out of the way. It's not quite that simplistic. I know it's been a bit nuanced as I've learned and grown, but I think it was incredible advice for me early in my career. And connect that to the inclusive leadership. It's not only what the person is, their zone of genius, but also I guess their personality of genius as well, meaning their whole self of genius, their whole amazing contributing self in those ways. And we all have strengths and weaknesses. So if you're not the Accelerado master, but you are the PowerPoint master, then do your thing, and then let someone else do the Excel work. So
it's a unique genius that comes from your background, from your preference, from your personality. And it's funny because up to that point, my goal in life was to fix my weaknesses, fix Excel, fix. It's a terrible place to be.
Oh, yeah.
And then I realized that, but I'm not trying to become an accountant or something like that. Like if we judge a singer like Beyonce or Michael Jackson for their ability to do Excel sheets, yeah, maybe they are not great at doing Excel sheets. It doesn't change the fact that they impacted and changed the world by, being great and, developing what they are great at and good at. So hopefully the world in which we live allow more of that. That talent development is going to be more about, okay, what is the passion? What is that silent fall in your heart? Let's find a way to bring it to the workplace and make it a bit more magical
and
heartless.
Connecting it to the other quote, connecting it to that passion within, that soul that lives within. Maybe as the final comment, just what is that second quote that you're inspired to share, and why, and what is it? What does that really mean, and what brings that smile to your face right now?
It's a connection with I am the soul that lives within. So give you the context. As a teenager or early 20s, there was this singer called India Ari. She is African American, and she had this famous song called "I Am Not My Hair." And the chorus goes like, "I am not my hair, I am not this skin, I am not your expectation, comma. I am not my hair, I am not this skin, I am the soul that lives within." And she sings this song about the fact that she has been judged for the different hairstyle that she had, and even she was judging herself, hiding herself, etc., etc. And at some point, the core message is, who cares? Whatever hairstyle I'm going through, who cares?
Yeah.
And when you're a teenager, you're passionate about that song. So while reviewing, your work from the perspective of Rumi's quote, I was like, is this really a Rumi quote, or did Rumi plagiarize India Ari? Time-wise, it doesn't make sense. Quite the way around. It's like, oh, wait. And now that we are talking about inclusive leadership, it's also the essence of inclusive leadership. But we are talking about hair and skin, but it could be, I'm not my appearance, my faith, I'm not the structure of my brain. I am a soul that lives within, that is yearning to nurture that silent pull towards the world that I love. And if you allow me to see, if you allow yourself to see me beyond the judging lens of biases, like, oh, she's this nationality or whatever she is or is not that I'm comfortable with, how can I manage to meet the soul that is within this person and allow their soul to thrive beyond the head, the skin, the neurodivergence, political views, and whatnot.
Wow. Candace, I'm going to do this. Candace Nkoth Bisseck is the middle part. Nkoth.
Yes.
I'm so happy we did this. We've been trying to make this happen for months and months, maybe years. I don't know. We've been picking it around.
More than a year, I think.
Yeah, it's I'm so grateful to swim in this moment with you, discovering ways for people to bring their inner beauty, power, and genius to their fullest at work and in life, putting down the sword and having conscious, intentional discussions about inclusive leadership. We need this so much today. It's thank you so much for your work and your gift and for sharing. If people would like to engage more in Innoa Consulting, I'll put it all in the show notes. It's innoaconsulting.com. I'll also put her own personal website as well as her link to LinkedIn and link to the book, The Miracles Beyond Borders, Part 1, which implies there's going to be more parts. I'll put a link to that book there as well. So, Candace, thank you so much for this. This has been a true gift.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our chat.
Thank you for listening. Visit ebullient.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player.